What's up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be doing a tier list for the family members. I'm also going to be releasing a tier list for the victims either this week coming up or the week after. But other than that, let's jump right into the video. So before we get started, leave a comment down below and let me know what's your tier list and where would you rank all of these family members. So for the first family member, we do have Leatherface, and he is an S tier character in my opinion. He's really good in the game. He is the face of the franchise, but in the actual game itself, the guy is game changing because, for an example, the rush meta. A lot of people like talking about the rush meta, and Leatherface is that one character that literally counters the rush meta because of the fact that he spawns in the basement. So let's say you have a Hitchhiker, a Cook, and a Sissy on the family side. There's no pressure whatsoever in the basement, so the victims have enough time to get tools and leave the basement within a minute. But if you have a Leatherface on your team, he immediately puts pressure on the victim team because of the fact that he spawns in the basement with them. And the good thing about Leatherface as well, the reason why he's an S tier character is because he can literally kill a victim right off the bat when the game starts because of his high damage. And that's another thing that I want to talk about is the high damage. He can literally one-shot or even 2 to 3 shot victims depending on what their toughness is and what their builds are. That's how good he is because of the high damage. Another reason why Leatherface is an S tier character is because of the fact that he can break barricades, destroy doors, destroy crawl spaces, and he can also thrust through gaps, which actually do pretty good damage. Also, another thing I want to talk about is the patrolling. Leatherface is really good when it comes to patrolling, the objectives such as the fuse box, gen, valve, and battery because of how fast he moves with that overhead, because you don't run out of stamina with the guy. He has like unlimited stamina once you have that overhead. He's not going to slow down. And on top of that, you can add Scout on the guy, which even makes him more faster, and he feels like a race car with Scouts. So that's why I think Leatherface is an S tier character, and I do believe that he is the best family member in the game. For the second family member, we have Hitchhiker, and Hitchhiker is an S tier character in my opinion because of how well-rounded he is. He can go through gaps, he can go through crawl spaces, plus he has traps. Traps are huge in this game in my opinion because it locks down objectives. So with Hitchhiker, usually Hitchhikers have traps on, the fuse box, maybe the valve as well if there's a Danny, and even the gate sometimes, and that locks down the maps. That puts pressure on the victims because if they don't have bomb squad, they're either forced to step in the trap or get a bone scrap, which takes some time. And another good thing about Hitchhiker is the builds. He has so many builds you can use, very good builds actually. The Venom build, which does a lot of damage, a lot of bleed damage actually. The Serrated build, which does bleed damage as well. The Blood build on him isn't too bad, and you can also use Wireframe on the guy, and that helps with chases obviously, right? Because with Wireframe you go through gaps and crawl spaces really fast. Another good thing about Hitchhiker is his ability tree. If you take a look at his ability tree, you can increase the damage on his traps, you can increase the bleed damage on his traps as well, and you can also increase the difficulty of his traps once the victims step in it. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of damage right there in terms of your traps, right? And you have 3 traps with Hitchhiker, which is really good. And if a victim steps in it or, dismantles it, you can always reset your trap, which takes like, I don't know how many seconds his traps take to reset, but it's very quick compared to, Nancy, for an example. But that's why I do think that Hitchhiker is an S tier character because he is well-rounded and his traps do come clutch when it comes to locking down the map. For the third family member, we have Cook, and Cook is another S tier character in my opinion because of how well he can lock down a map. I know a lot of people don't like playing Cook because of how slow he is, but let me tell you something. With Scout, it's not that bad. He's not like he's obviously the slowest character, but with Scout, he's not that slow. He's pretty quick on his feet with Scout, not gonna lie. And also his padlocks. The main reason why I have him at the S tier is because of his padlocks. His padlocks are literally game changing. There's a reason why people want to Cook on their team, and it's because of the fact that he can literally lock down the map. He can lock down both sides of the map. You know what I mean? Especially with security pins on top of that. With security pins, it makes it even more harder and more challenging for the victims to even get through those padlocks. You know what I mean? And another thing about Cook is his ability. His ability is so good. that ability where you can just spot victims and make callouts for your teammates. And another thing with his ability is his ability tree. The top right of his ability tree, all family see noise, comes very clutch, because when you spot a victim with that ability, the all family see noise ability, level 3, top right of the ability tree, the family members will also be able to see where the victim is at because of that ability, the all family see noise. That's why I do think Cook is an S tier character, because of how well he can lock down a map and how well he can honestly communicate with his team. That's the thing about Cook as well. Even if you don't have a mic, his ability helps your teammates. You know what I mean? Like, even without a mic, Cook can communicate with your teammates, if that makes sense, because of the all family see noise. That's why I do have Cook at the S tier. For the fourth family member, we have Johnny, and Johnny's either an A tier character for me or a B tier character. I'm leaning more towards the A tier for Johnny because of how strong he is. I mean, the guy can swing for days and he hits like a truck. He's literally the definition of destruction. I mean, there's a reason why whenever you go on social media, such as Twitter and Reddit, a lot of people are complaining about Johnny and how he should get a nerf. There's literally a reason why. I mean, the guy is destruction. If you take a look at his skill tree, he can get some really good builds. I mean, there's a build out there, Scout, Unrelenting, and Violent, with 50 Savagery and 50 Endurance. Let me tell you something, that build hits like a truck. And you can also get Violent and Big Swings together on Johnny, which is, dude, that build, you would have to find a gap or a crawl space right away, because you're gonna die within a few swings. That build hits like a truck, man. But the downfall for Johnny, I would say, is the fact that he can't go through gaps and crawl spaces. His ability is all right. It's definitely not the best ability compared to the other characters, but all around, I mean, there's a reason why people are complaining about him, and there's a reason why, you know, people are scared of Johnny, because, you know, the guy hits very hard and he can swing a lot. He barely runs out of stamina from what I've seen, because of that build you can get, the 50 Savagery and the 50 Endurance. And another thing I would like to add to Johnny, with that side of the skill tree, I forget which build it is. I don't know if it's the Scout with Violent or the Big Swings with Violent. I think it's the Scout with Violent. You can also get Suffocating Grip, which is really good. Suffocating Grip is such a good grandpa perk. That's another plus for Johnny right there with that build. But all around, I would say he's an A tier character because of how strong he is. For the fifth family member, we have Sissy, and I do believe that Sissy is a B tier character. B tier is not bad, by the way. B tier is fair in my opinion. And I do believe that Sissy is a very underrated character in the game. But if you compare her to Hitch, for an example, they're both chasers. They both can go through gaps and crawl spaces. Hitch's ability is much better, in my opinion. I do believe that his traps are much better than Sissy's ability. And let's talk about Sissy's ability. I wanted to compare the two, Sissy and Hitchhiker, because I want to talk about Sissy's ability compared to Hitchhiker's ability. But with Sissy's ability, like, she can go through gaps and crawl spaces, but with her ability, the powder, the poison, people are not scared of the poison, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I've seen it. Sissy puts poison at the barricade and victims keep jumping over it because they're not scared of the poison. Even though her poison can get to bleed damage with a level 3 ability on her ability tree, people are still not scared of that bleed damage on her poison. So that's why I do have her at the B tier. You know, I definitely, if I had to pick a chaser between Hitchhiker or Sissy, if I had to pick one, I would pick Hitchhiker over Sissy. So that's why I do have Sissy at the B tier. But that does not mean that Sissy's a bad character. There are Sissies out there that whip my ass when I play TCM. I mean, that linger perk on her, try it out, guys. That linger perk on her is no joke. And that wireframe build that she has is really good. They definitely buffed her with that skill tree rework and adding wireframe to her, because that wireframe build on her, it's no joke. She does damage, Sissy. She does damage. She's also good because not only can she go through gaps and crawl spaces, her blood harvesting is really good default. I think it's 38, her blood harvesting. So you can feed Grandpa pretty quick with her because of that default blood harvesting. It's really good. And she's also good because she swings very fast. Her attack speed is very fast. So that's why I put her at the B tier slots. Keep in mind, B tier is not bad. That's good in my opinion. She's a good character. I would just pick all these other characters over her when I play family. That's why I have her at the B tier. All right, to the moment you guys have been waiting for, and the reason why I say that is because if you watch my streams, you would know that when I do play family, I like to play Nancy a lot. But honestly, I know a lot of you guys would put Nancy at the D tier, but I'm going to put her at the C tier. You know, I don't think she's completely garbage. You know, I do think she's pretty good, but there's also issues with her character. And I'm going to explain those issues right now. So the main issues with Nancy, I would say the main issue with Nancy is the trap placement. You know, a lot of people are complaining about her trap placement and how long it takes. And I understand, I understand because it does take a while. And as we all may know, victims like to play quick at the start of the match. So, when the victims play quick at the start of the match and you're playing as Nancy, you may be able to get, one or possibly two traps up by the time they come upstairs. It does take a while compared to, Hitchhiker when it comes to her traps, right? Hitchhiker places his traps pretty quick. And then with Nancy, it takes pretty long, right? And the thing is, with Nancy, there's a perk called pins and needles. So let's say pins and needles activates. You're not going to have enough time to place her traps, right? Because it takes a while to place it. You know what I mean? And another issue with Nancy is, I'm not gonna say it's an issue actually, but her skill tree is decent. I mean, if you compare her skill tree to like the other family members, I would say it's probably the worst. No, if you compare it to the other family members, I would say her skill tree is pretty small compared to the other family members. Let me know what you guys think about that. But I'm pretty sure it's small compared to the other family members, if I'm not mistaken. But there used to be a build with Nancy. A lot of people actually like to use this build on Nancy, and I think a lot of people stopped using Nancy after the skill tree rework. The build was fired up, poisoned claws, and pins and needles with 50 savagery. And after the skill tree rework, they actually moved fired up to the other side of the skill tree. And I honestly think that made a lot of people like stop using Nancy. That build was actually cracked on Nancy. That fired up build with 50 savagery on her, because 50 savagery with poison claws fired up and pins and needles. I mean, you can't go wrong. That's a crazy build. It's gonna hit hard. And if you guys don't know already, with poison claws is her best perk in my opinion. When you hit a victim with poison claws, they're gonna be running into walls and corners and all that. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a good perk, her best perk in my opinion. But yeah, after the removal of that fired up build and adding fired up to the other side of the skill tree, I do think a lot of people stopped playing Nancy. I mean, that was her best build in my opinion, was that fired up 50 savagery build. But also she does have a good build with Scout and Feral, but hey, who knows? Maybe they'll tweak her skill tree in the future. Who knows? Like I said, the main thing I would say as like a Nancy main, fix her trap placement. I think a lot of people would consider playing Nancy again if you placed, like, if you could place her traps pretty quick like Hitchhiker. You know what I mean? But the good thing about Nancy, I would say, is, like I said, the poison claws is pretty good. Pins and needles is really good once it activates. Like, it's really good when it activates. It activates for me a lot, surprisingly, and it comes clutch. Don't get me wrong, it does come clutch. And then I would say her ability is really good. And if you guys don't know this already, I think a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people ask me this question. Actually, when I play Nancy on stream, a lot of people are surprised because they don't know about this. I'll tell you this right now. With Nancy, if you use your ability and you go to that powder station where Sissy collects her powder, you get your ability back much faster. A lot of people are surprised. They don't know about that when I do play Nancy on stream, because, no one really plays her as much and they don't know about that aspect of Nancy. But I'll repeat myself again just so you guys get a better understanding. If you use your ability with Nancy, go to a powder station, collect the powder, and once you collect the powder, look at your ability, because your ability will come back much faster. It does come clutch, trust me, it does come clutch. A lot of people don't know about it, so hopefully you guys know now and actually give Nancy a shot and see how it works for you. But another thing with her ability is really good in my opinion, because it does spot the victims and it will show you where they're at, right? It does come clutch, especially when it's the last victim left. It comes clutch, man. It comes really clutch, especially on the mill map. I think Nancy is one of the best on the mill because of that ability, and her ability comes clutch on that map because of how big the map itself is. You know what I mean? So that abandoned mill map is really big, and yeah, her traps on that map and her ability come really clutch. But yeah, there are issues with Nancy, that trap placement, like I said before, and hey, maybe they'll buff her in the future. Like I said, They said on Reddit they are looking into her, because I know some people want to play as her, but compared to the other characters, she's not the strongest if you compare her to the other family members. And that's why I put her at the C tier. Didn't want to put her at the D tier because, I don't think she's completely useless and garbage. I think she's pretty good, but we'll see what they do in the future for her. For the final family member, we have Hans, and Hans is either an S tier character for me or an A tier character, but I'm leaning more towards S tier for Hans because of how well-rounded he is. I mean, he can't go through gaps and crawl spaces, but the guy has a barge ability, which is really good. I think people actually underrate that barge ability, but let me tell you something. That barge ability actually comes clutch when your teammates are around. And then he also has 3 traps. He also has 3 traps, which electrocutes the victims if they activate it. You can dismantle it with Bomb Squad, though, but if they do activate it, they do get electrocuted and they fall to the ground, the victims. And then the third thing he has is the Ripstall ability. The Ripstall ability is what makes him S tier, in my opinion. That Ripstall ability is clutch. If you guys didn't know already, let's say you do fuse box math and you complete it, then you turn on... Let's say you complete the fuse box math, you turn on the fuse box, and the fuse box exit is open. If Hans is there, he can rip out the fuse and the fuse box exit will close. That's what the Ripstall ability does. And the thing about the Ripstall ability as well, if you look at his ability tree, there is a cooldown for it, like a shorter cooldown, I think on the left side of his ability tree. So you can get his ability back pretty quick, that Ripstall ability. But I'll definitely tell you something right now. A lot of people want that nerfed. A lot of people want his cooldown to be longer because it is short right now. He does get his Ripstall ability pretty quick. So I do understand where those people are coming from when they say they want to nerf on his cooldown, because it does come back quick. But I wouldn't mind if they nerf it, but I wouldn't mind if they leave it how it is. It doesn't matter to me when it comes to his Ripstall ability. There are ways to counter it, but he does have a perk called Ripstalled. Ripstalled is a really good perk, so if you guys play Hands a lot, I would recommend the perk called Ripstalled, because there is a strategy out there that a lot of people are doing, and it's like the double strat. So for an example, what a lot of people will do is they would open up the fuse box, grab 2 fuses, and then but what they do is they put the first one in, wait for Hans to Ripstall it, and then put the second one in, because Hans can't Ripstall it again because he already used his ability on the first fuse. But that's where Ripstalled comes into play, because with Ripstalled, once you Ripstall the fuse, for an example, they can't put the second fuse in right away. They have to wait 30 seconds to put the fuse in. That's why Ripstalled is one of his best perks in the skill tree, in my opinion. He also has another perk called Barrier Breaker. This is why I also think he's a really good character, because he does replace Leatherface in a way. And what I mean by that is he's the only character besides Leatherface that can break barricades. And with his perk, the Barrier Breaker, you can use that Barrier Breaker perk with any build you want, because it's the first perk on his skill tree. That's why he's a really good character, because of that Barrier Breaker as well. It definitely opens up the map for your team, and you can chase victims as well. You don't have to worry about the barricades being in your way with Hands. You know what I mean? But that's why I think he's S tier, He has the barge ability, the 3 traps that electrocutes victims if they activate it. He has some really good perks on his skill tree, really good builds that you can get. And most importantly, on Hands is that Ripstall ability. That Ripstall ability is what makes him an S tier character, in my opinion. This is my family tier list, and feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know. What do you think about my family tier list, and where would you rank these family members if you were to make a family tier list? But other than that, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and take care, guys. Have a nice day. See you in the next one.